will start with the Pledge of Allegiance, and it's being led by Kathy Vestal, right? And Kathy has been with the department many years, and we really appreciate your service, and thank you for coming today. To the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And if you'll remain standing for the invocation. Yes. Chaplain Susan McCann, sorry.
Let us pray. Almighty and everlasting God, you have made all the peoples of the earth for your glory, to serve you in freedom and in peace. Hear our prayers for the dedicated women and men of the Kansas City, Missouri Police Department who have answered the call to protect and to serve the people of this great community. Send your holy angels to watch over them. Protect them day by day with your heavenly grace. Strengthen them in their trials. Give them courage to handle the perils which beset them, and bless them with a sure and certain knowledge of your abiding presence with them in every circumstance. We pray also for the members of the Board of Police Commissioners, for the weight of the responsibilities they bear is great. Guide and direct them in all their deliberations. Bless them with profound wisdom to perceive what is right, and grant them courage to pursue it. May their decisions always promote the common good and the welfare of all your people, in accordance with your just and holy will. Finally, gracious God, we pray for the gift of peace, the peace of God which passes all understanding, peace throughout your world and peace in our city. We pray fervently for an end to discord and violence. We lift up to you each resident of Kansas City, Missouri. May your holy and life-giving spirit so move in every human heart that barriers which divide may crumble, suspicions disappear, and all hatred cease, that our divisions being healed, we may live together in unity, justice, and peace. All this we pray in your most holy name. Amen.
Certificate of Appreciation, Jorge Perez. On March 10th of this year, about 9:30 p.m., officers saw a vehicle drive by at a high rate of speed. They notified dispatch and began to travel in the same direction. As they reached an intersection, they saw a different car that had been in a crash. It turned out that the vehicle they saw speed by had hit this vehicle and killed the driver. The speeding vehicle, it was upside down and on top of another vehicle across the intersection. When one of the officers arrived at this chaotic scene, he discovered Jorge Perez. Perez heard the crash and rushed outside. He saw the driver of the speeding vehicle get out and start to flee the scene. Perez, however, chased him down and stopped the suspect from leaving. Perez kept control of the driver until officers arrived. The vehicle was stolen. It is possible that if the suspect would have run away, the crime could have gone unsolved. Instead, Perez went above and beyond to detain the driver, allowing officers to make an arrest. For his outstanding assistance to the Kansas City, Missouri Police Department, Chief Stacy Graves, along with the Board of Police Commissioners, is pleased to present the Certificate of Appreciation to Jorge Perez. Certificate of Appreciation, Newcomers Whitechapel Funeral Home. On February 15th of this year, Officer James Mulbauer was killed in the line of duty while patrolling the streets of Kansas City. Officer Mulbauer left behind a wife and children who were overcome with grief and overwhelmed by the decisions needed in the wake of his passing. Out of the blue, Mr. Jeff Eads of Newcomers Whitechapel Funeral Home contacted KCPD's funeral coordinator. After discussing the circumstances, Mr. Eads volunteered to coordinate the services at no charge to Officer Mulbauer's widow. The funeral home provided invaluable guidance. The services were valued in the thousands of dollars, but they didn't charge a dime. The entire staff did an amazing job honoring Officer Mulbauer's memory, displaying compassion as it was needed. For their outstanding assistance to the Kansas City, Missouri Police Department, Chief Stacy Graves, along with the Board of Police Commissioners, is pleased to present the Certificate of Appreciation to Newcomers Whitechapel Funeral Home. Certificate of Appreciation, Rolling Acres Pet Cremation Services. On February 15th, Officer James Mulbauer and his canine partner, Champ, were killed in the line of duty while on patrol. After hearing the circumstances of Champ's death, Rolling Acres Cremation Services volunteered to handle all of his services. They made several clay and ink paw prints for Mulbauer's family and members of the canine unit. They also cremated Champ and provided an urn for the Mulbauers. Rolling Acres was incredibly generous, kind, and compassionate. For their outstanding assistance to the Kansas City, Missouri Police Department, Chief Stacy Graves, along with the Board of Police Commissioners, is pleased to present the Certificate of Appreciation to Rolling Acres Pet Cremation Services.
guest presentations, and the first one has to do with fentanyl and opioid from the city. And I requested this last month after we heard a presentation from the city, so I'm looking forward to it. Dr. Francisco?
All right, thanks everyone for bearing with me on that. My name is Dr. Alex Francisco, and I am the Chief Science Officer at the Kansas City Health Department. If you are curious, my uncle, formerly of the Kansas City Police Department, Mark Francisco, now Chief of Police in Cheyenne, Wyoming. I know it might not have been super obvious because we have opposite hair, but so with that, I'll get into a bit more serious of a topic here. So, y'all are probably familiar with the general statistics surrounding fentanyl overdoses and overdoses in general for our city. The trajectory of overdose deaths in Kansas City has changed dramatically within the last 4 years. And in 2022, there was only a single day without a suspected overdose in city emergency rooms throughout our jurisdiction. For the first time in 2021, overdose deaths actually eclipsed homicides, 182 overdose deaths in total in 2021 compared to 157 homicides. But these overdoses aren't entirely due to general, like a variety of substances. But that hasn't always been the case. So if you look on the left here, in 2017, we had 100 total overdose deaths. The vast majority was contributed to a various number of substances. And you can see synthetic opioids, mostly fentanyl. That's just my data specify synthetic instead of fentanyl specifically. Comprise a relatively small slice of those overdose deaths in 2017. Dramatic difference compared to my most recent year's data in 2021. So you can see just how much larger the slice of overdose deaths in total synthetics make up. And on top of that, we have almost twice as many as well. So it really, truly a dramatic difference in the contribution of fentanyl to overdose deaths in our more recent years. This is one of the most troubling ones that I can actually create. So when you look at overdose deaths going all the way back to 2013 that are due to synthetic opioids, we really had relatively few, bounced back and forth between 4 and 7 from 2013 to 2017, with a single exception of 2016. And then just a rapid explosion. I don't frequently get to point at true exponential growth. This is truly exponential growth in our number of overdose deaths due to fentanyl between 2018 and 2021. There was about 1,000%, just a little under 1,000% increase between those years. And this is affecting pretty much every demographic within the city. I will specify this isn't the pattern elsewhere. Elsewhere, it is largely African American men in their 40s where the predominant collection of fentanyl deaths are occurring. That's not the pattern here, but as with most things, when it happens on the coasts, it happens here later. And so I do anticipate that there are some data that suggest that that is what's happening or going to happen relatively soon within our city. However, for now, the actual collection of deaths in terms of rate is in the white population. It's a little covered up there. The total deaths isn't as important as the rate per 100,000, which just allows us to compare groups with different population sizes. However, even given that comparison, the white population is still exceeding the rest of our demographics in terms of deaths. You can see that trajectory on the chart here. If they were increasing at the same rate, you would see parallel lines. But you can see there's actually a divergence in our white residents in terms of deaths in the last 2 years for data that we have. And then you can see the collection in ages as well. So at the chart at the bottom, you can see that the rates are relatively similar between the 18 and 29 and the 40 and 49-year-olds. Those are our two highest populations with deaths due to synthetic opioids. Again, these aren't concentrated in one particular area, and as you've probably heard myself, the mayor, and others discuss, this is truly a citywide issue. On the left here, we have a zip code map, which you're all probably relatively familiar with, the zip codes of this city. And you can see where there are two real concentrations at the zip code level, one in the Northland around Gladstone, where I grew up, and the other is, broadly speaking, Westport, a couple other neighborhoods encapsulated in there. But when you break that down to the level of the census tract, you can actually see that it's even more concentrated than just those zip codes. Within those areas, there are areas of higher concentration relative to others. But again, I have to say, there are more zip codes with opioid deaths, with overdose deaths due to fentanyl, than there are those without any deaths in this time period, which is really a surprise. This is something that is occurring citywide, and this is just the ones that we're able to capture with our data. So that's what I'll get to in the next slide. A few weeks ago, we were able to pass an ordinance that aims to use a new source of data, or at least a more rapid source of data, to address the fentanyl epidemic in our city from the perspective of the health department at least. Currently, this is me a little bit venting here, we have to rely on the state for our deaths, our death files. Each year I receive a statistics files that cover all the births, all the deaths, and all the hospitalizations. The births and the deaths capture the previous year. The hospitalizations are 2 years lagged because of the sheer volume of those files. However, the state has become increasingly tardy, we'll say, with those files, to the point where I actually have not received the 2022 files as of yet. So those are actually going to be 2 years out of date by the time I actually receive them. Previously, we would receive those around April. And to my perspective, we can no longer rely on those to come to us in a timely fashion, so further steps were needed. This ordinance will require all fatal and non-fatal overdoses for schedule substances, according to the Missouri chapter listed here, to be reported to the health department within 24 hours. All other overdoses will be reported on a monthly basis. Those are still going to be very important and a new source of data that we typically don't receive. One thing that I'll be working towards in whatever ways that I can is actually to receive full toxicology reports, particularly with the fatal overdoses. This is a really difficult thing to ascertain in the city because of the unique structure of our medical examiners, where we have several medical examiners utilized by the different counties. I'm sure you all know this just as much as I do, but that is something that we'll have to overcome. However, it's vitally important. That's where the information of co-administration comes. We'll be able to see what multiple substances folks were on. Did the folks actually know that they were on these substances when they passed away? All the information that we may be able to glean from the non-fatal overdoses, we won't be able to glean without those types of reports for the fatal overdoses. With the mayor's aid, we'll also be creating an overdose fatality review board, which will comprise an annual review of those overdoses so that we can provide a summary report to whoever needs it, you all as well, included in that process. The final step to this ordinance that I'm quite excited about is actually an investigative process similar to the ones that we conduct for communicable diseases. So we'll be hiring 2 folks to actually call individuals who have experienced a non-fatal overdose to talk to them about any measures that we could have taken that could be taken in the future to prevent those overdoses from occurring again. This is a vital source of information that really, to my knowledge, isn't available anywhere else. This isn't a process that folks are really doing throughout the country. Believe me, I really wish they were, because then I'd have something to go off of. But right now, we're really adapting this model from a number of different sources within the department who conduct similar processes for STDs, for all other communicable diseases. There is a lot of overlap here. So I'm really excited about the opportunity to talk to these folks, to get them into treatment, to talk to them about what could have prevented overdoses in the past, and then honestly to offer them other services. One of the most common issues with folks who use injection needles is hepatitis C. And hepatitis C is entirely curable now. So if we can prevent one person from contracting hepatitis C, or if we can cure one person of hepatitis C, that typically equates to about 25 people in the subsequent year who will not contract hepatitis C due to the needle sharing practices and other things that these types of folks end up engaging in. So that's really all I have today. This is an ordinance that I'm super excited about, and all thanks to Sergeant Aaron Benson, who I worked closely with on this throughout our time together, up to and including the Fentanyl Summit in New York. But I don't know if questions and anything else that you all are interested in hearing from me, I'm more than happy to talk about.
You know, just a few things that I'll add, and thank you, Dr. Francisco, for joining us. I also want to acknowledge the efforts of Dr. Marvia Jones, who's the Director of Public Health in Kansas City. A few different things that Dr. Francisco, Sergeant Benson, other KCPD department members, and others have been a part of in recent weeks. One related to a fentanyl summit that we held at the Health Department on Friday afternoon. That was joined by members of KCPD, the Kansas Bureau of Investigation, Homeland Security, and a number of different public groups. Some who work on the prevention side, others with our young people, and sadly parents from all walks of life who have lost children to fentanyl. I also will note that last week I spent time at North Kansas City Hospital with the Northland CAPS program. Our high schools in the Northland had students who were working on ways to communicate the dangers of one pill, how one pill can kill. And so there's a commitment from the city in connection with all of its agencies, and certainly with the cooperation of the police department, as to how we can make sure that we're doing all we can from these other areas in concert with the enforcement side to try to fight this crisis. One final point that I'll make an acknowledgement to, I was about to say Deputy Chief Francisco, but to Dr. Francisco and Sergeant Benson, is that this was largely generated, many of these efforts, by some of their communication with us. I had a conversation with the mayor of the city of New York some months ago where he talked about challenges of fentanyl in their community, particularly in the unhoused population. They put together a summit. I could not attend. Sergeant Benson, Dr. Francisco went. I think they were a city that was in some ways leading with at least aggressive responses for what we could do, and we look forward to them continuing to do so. So we're excited about the ordinance. I think this is cooperation at its best, and as I've talked with the chief about in the past, to the extent the health department, which often is in a lot of these spaces, whether it be fentanyl, drug use, homicides, suicides, and others, can work closely with our police department, it seems as if that works well for the city in making sure we're taking good steps. So that's all I would share on that. And I thank you for making the time.
Thank you for your initiative and going to New York and gathering more information, and we will help you in any way we can. But it is a sad business, but we're glad you're doing it. Thank you.
I would just like to know, too, can we get a copy of this?
Absolutely.
I think
Yeah,
this is
absolutely.
outstanding, and really appreciate all the efforts you put into making that happen. And I have a teenager that I'm going to let, you know, we're always creating that awareness with our kids, and it's nice when we have something like this to share. Thank you.
Anything else? Thank you very much, Doctor. Now we have Councilman Ray. Thank you for being here.
Good morning. Councilman Crispin Ray, 4th District at Large, here to give an update from our side of things over at City Hall. Want to thank you for receiving the presentation that you just received. We also received that presentation prior to the ordinance that the mayor sponsored a couple weeks ago, and it goes without saying that the data is alarming and a call to action. And so you certainly have partners across the street over at City Hall, and I thank the mayor for his leadership on this issue, as well as Chief Graves for giving this the level of attention that it needs. A couple things on the city council's end. I feel like my update has just become an update on the work we're doing around a rehabilitation and detention center, but that's obviously a very important topic right now. So we continue to have our Tuesday hearings. Today, we have the statisticians from the original 2019 study to come and answer some very detailed questions about the forensic analysis. Judge Wackel, the presiding judge over at Municipal Court, is also presenting to us today. And I think the members of the committee are very excited about this presentation because we have a lot of questions about that analysis. And then going into January, we have folks from University Health who actually provide mental health services in the current jailing system to give us some information moving forward. And so as we've been having the public safety hearings, we've also had community engagement sessions, and we had our last one last night in the 3rd District. We've done one per council district, and we've gotten about 30 to 40 folks for each session and gotten some very good feedback, and they've received condensed versions of all the information that we've received about site, location, financing, and size of a facility. So that concludes the community engagement session portion of this, but we're continuing to have the hearings with the goal of having a recommendation for the full council to consider soon. That's all I have to update you on today.
Thank you, and you're right, it's very important.
Yeah, thank you. And sorry, I do have one more item. I've had several conversations with Chief Graves and your colleague, Mr. Whitaker, about downtown security. As I've gone to meetings in the greater downtown area, I've heard a lot about public safety issues and things that have been happening. And so I think we're talking about some pretty good solutions, and the Downtown Council has asked us to join them for a public safety summit in December in the next couple weeks, assuming they've gotten the responses. I don't know, Chief, if you responded to the doodle poll, but I did yesterday. And so I'm looking forward to continuing those conversations, which includes one of your fellow board members, Chief Graves, and other downtown folks. And I believe the mayor was also invited to that public safety forum or summit or whatever they're calling it. So that's my update.
Thank you. Keep up the good work. Next, Chief Graves.
Good morning. I'll be brief. I just want to mention, on Friday, K9 Victor lost mobility in his front legs and was taken to the vet. He quickly lost mobility in all legs. This is a picture of him and Officer Davis. He was transported to in Columbia to be examined further, and after an extensive evaluation of the chances for his recovery, the decision was made to euthanize K9 Victor. K9 Victor and Officer Kenny Davis arrived in Liberty on Sunday, where they were met by his squad to say their goodbyes. With his squad by their sides, they said goodbye to K9 Victor. Victor was a 7-year-old Belgian Malinois. End of watch was 12/10 of 23. K9 Victor and Officer Kenny have been partners since 2018 and have stories to prove it. Victor's favorite thing to do was to play with any ball that he could find. I just wanted to express our sincerest condolences to Officer Davis, his family, and all members of the K9 unit. I ask that you keep them in your thoughts and prayers. They've had a tough year for their team. I would be remiss to not acknowledge that Sergeant Brad Lemon, our FOP president, is retiring this month. Sergeant Lemon.
He's here.
He has been with the Kansas City, Missouri Police Department for 31 and a half years as a sworn officer, 20 of that as a sergeant, and 10 as a president of the FOP. He has definitely represented the voices of our employees here at KCPD, and I just wanted to recognize his retirement and his contribution to the Fraternal Order of Police here at KCPD. Furthermore, on Friday, December 15th, I'll have been chief for 1 year. Went by fast. Sometimes it feels like it went by fast. Sometimes it feels like it was 7 years ago. In that past year, excuse me, I have made myself available in all parts of our city. I've listened. I've worked on strengthening relationships, forging new ones, and building bridges, and I've got to say I've enjoyed it. I've let Kansas City know that violent crime is my top priority, and that if one life is taken by violence in our city, everyone should be concerned. I brought stakeholders together for a citywide approach to violent crime, and I continue to look for innovative ways to stop the violence in our Kansas City neighborhoods. It's been an uphill battle, and my hope is we can turn this violent trend around and change the history in Kansas City. In the coming year, I will continue to focus on strengthening KCPD with recruiting and retention, offering a competitive wage, improving the work environment, and ensuring our members are valued and supported, and Kansas City is safer as a result. Thank you for the opportunity to serve in such an important role in the city I love and that I will always call home. So thank you. I just wanted to acknowledge a couple of things today. That's all I have.
Thank you, Brad Lemon. You are a worthy adversary, and you represent the officers well, and they need that. So we'll miss you. Oh, well, okay. Well, I didn't know that. I don't know if you heard that. He doesn't have a microphone. He said, I'm not going anywhere. I will continue to be president of the union. So he just won't be a police officer any longer.
That's correct.
Is that correct? Okay. Well, I'm sure that all the officers breathed a sigh of relief. And the people in Jefferson City will expect you soon. Thank you.
Madam Chair, if I just may say as to Sergeant Lemon, so does this mean, Chief, where previously at least you could punish him or something like that, he's just a pure free agent now? Huh?
So watch out.
Yeah, that's sad. Thanks for your service, Sergeant Lemon, as an officer. I know previously you were in the United States military, and this has been quite a career of service, although it changes. We recognize your commitment to the people of Kansas City and our country over all these years, so thank you.
Yes, thank you. Appreciate working with you, and I'm glad that we will continue to work together with the department as well. So I'm excited for you to get a little more peace maybe, and thank you for what you do.
I would also like to recognize Sergeant Lemon. He was a strong and effective advocate for the department and for the members of his FOP. He was a fierce negotiator, but he could always be trusted. You will be missed, Sergeant Lemon, I think.
Now we're going to go to Colonel Ortiz.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
My information is under tab A in your books. You will find today's daily homicide analysis report. In 2023, we had 174 homicides from 154 incidents. This year, we cleared 94 homicides and 33 homicides from previous years for a total of 127 cases. 73% of the homicides in 2023 are either solved or cleared. In November, we had 16 homicide victims. Of those 16, 6 are cleared by arrest, and 3 that we're working on presenting charges. The rest, 7, are still open and under investigation. In November, 6 of these homicides were due to arguments, 3 homicides were due to domestic violence, 3 to drugs, 1 was due to carelessness, and 2 to retaliation, and the remaining 1 is unknown. So far, there has been 1 homicide victim in December compared to 6 last year. You also have a copy of the non-fatal shooting comparison report. You will find that from January 1st to November 31st, 2023, there were 477 non-fatal shooting victims. In 2022, we had 498 victims during the same time period, which is down 11% compared to last year. However, in November 2023, we had 36 non-fatal shooting victims compared to 31 from the previous year. and that's an increase of 16% for the month. The Violent Crimes Division handled 36 shooting victims in the month of November. That included 31 cases. The assault unit handled 23 cases. The robbery unit handled 3. Domestic violence handled 2. And the homicide unit handled 3. Of those cases, 10 are still active cases. 9 are closed due to victim uncooperation. 1 case is pending leads. 3 cases with warrants issued, and 3 cases where we charge 3 suspects. So far, there have been 16 non-fatal shooting victims in December compared to 13 at this time last year. During the month of November, we submitted a total of 286 cases to county prosecutors. 218 of those cases were to Jackson County, 36 to Clay County, 32 to Platte County, and 0 to Cass County. That will conclude my report unless you have any questions.
I do have a question, and I know we don't track this now, but I'm trying to understand if maybe the city will. The overdose deaths, I've read that some cities consider that as a homicide and try to find out who provided the drugs and to charge them. Have we looked into that?
We do. We do. In our initial response to any non-fatal or any death notification, is going to be the same. Our detectives, homicide detectives, will come in, process the scene with crime scene, and at that time we will initiate that investigation. And if that investigation leads us to more details or more information, then we will continue that investigation.
So
as
we
a homicide.
consider it a homicide?
If we have information that is going to be, it's hard to prove the homicide, and this is a challenge that
Yes.
we're going through.
That's what I've read.
National, and every police department and every city is going through the same frustrations that it's hard to prove a homicide.
Thank you. Yes, Chief.
Yes, we do, like what Colonel Ortiz said, we do respond to overdose deaths. And we do, once we determine that there's that it's a cause from an overdose, that's when we initiate kind of pulling some of our drug squads. I don't want to speak for him, but we do look into some of those overdose investigations and try to track that back.
I would love for us to be able to find out who's providing this.
So would we, yeah, and we do that.
Thank you, Colonel. Any other questions?
So I just had a question. It looks like we broke the all-time high now for murders as far as the homicides
Not quite.
on the
yet.
174?
Not yet.
Not yet.
174, not yet.
Okay, I'm just looking at the 2020 at 173.
Oh, okay, yes, 2020,
Okay.
yes.
179 is the final number from that year.
From that year,
On the- on the
okay. I gotcha.
parenthetical.
All right, I saw the 173, and that's what I was looking at. On that, and like you were saying, part of that, with that being overdose, is some of those numbers, you think, going up because of that? Or are those mostly not in there?
It's hard to say because the toxicology, it's when the toxicology comes back, we have to see exactly if the cause of the death is due to fentanyl, then, and if we have a suspect that we can pursue, we will count that as a homicide. But so far, there are many other substances with the toxicology that it's hard to prove that a person died because of the fentanyl overdose.
Okay.
That's one of the challenges that we have. And again, it's going to be a challenge for every other police department in the country.
Right, right. And I'm glad we're doing those weekly meetings or that on the jail, because I think that's going to be a big help with going forward in the new year, and looking forward to the chief's plan for that with, you know, hopefully that will help us and we'll get that started. So thank you.
I may just briefly, Madam Chair, ask about non-fatal overdoses. How do we usually treat those? So I understand a fatal overdose, in just about every situation, I'd imagine the police become part of the involvement, except for the rare situation somebody's transported to a hospital, but even then they probably are. For non-fatal overdoses, what's our typical role in connection with those?
Our detectives will respond to the scene, and if there's a connection that we can say that this is an overdose, then we're going to contact our Special Investigations Division and take the investigation from there. What we do with that information is that we're going to use it for intelligence purposes to see exactly who's the supplier, and we start actively engaging that individual to try to get them with drugs, with possession, and then submit those cases for prosecution. But our detectives will do the best that they can to pursue those charges.
We've been following up on overdoses and overdose deaths for years. Yeah, this actually isn't new for us. I think fentanyl is just obviously the emerging drug. And listening to our, I know you keep mentioning nationally it's an issue. There's another emerging drug, xylazine, that was mentioned when our detectives presented for the fentanyl then. So there's yet another drug on the horizon that we need to keep an eye on, make sure that we're monitoring that as well when it comes to overdoses, and if and or when it comes to Kansas City.
Talk to me briefly about, and I don't imagine maybe this is your division or not, staffing for those who are working in this area. So with drug investigations and others, I would assume you're understaffed broadly, but talk to us about perhaps how understaffed, and then if you could add a little about what is federal cooperation right now in those areas. How are we doing in getting resources to address those issues?
Absolutely. Our staffing, as much as I would like to say that is good, we're still struggling with our numbers. Special Investigation Division has been operating at 63.8% of our capacity. And of course, that limits the number of detectives that we're going to be having out there investigating all of this. So it's been a challenge. We're hoping that 2024 is going to be better. But as far as our federal partners, they have been invaluable to everything that we do. Just in this year, in cooperation with the DEA, we have recovered 97 pounds of powder fentanyl, and this is way higher compared to the previous year at 67 pounds. And out of those, we have presented 45 cases to the federal prosecutors for charges. So our guys continue to do an impressive work with the numbers that we have.
This board has previously received discussion both from the Jackson County prosecutor in one meeting and then the Clay and Platte County prosecutors as to drug prosecution when they look to bring cases, among other things. I guess simple question is the fentanyl discussion relevant to that at all, or rather you're in Jackson, Clay, Platte, or Cass? Most cases that you refer, do you see, assuming there's enough evidentiary information, that prosecutors are willing to pursue charges?
Most of our cases are going to be to Jackson County, and yes, if they see that there's a nexus to violence, they will file those charges.
So I hate to interrupt you, but that's kind of my key question.
Yep.
Do we need a nexus? Well, I mean, I'm the politician, so I'll make my point, but I'll ask you, I guess, so there still is the nexus to violence requirement even with fentanyl-related cases, or so is your understanding?
Correct. We still need that. And
I'm
one
sorry,
of our
we
goals
still need it for Jackson County or for any prosecution?
for any prosecution.
I might disagree.
That's not our doing, though. That we want those cases to be presented to them and for them
But
to
I
make a decision.
understood previous discussion from the Clay and Platte County prosecutors to suggest that just the pure, even if it's a possession type charge, they're willing to pursue those charges. What I'm trying to get at, I'm not trying to pinpoint you down to anything, is, I'll just tell you my view. I would love for fentanyl to be perhaps treated differently than some others, given the amount of challenges that it is and just the lethality that I think we're running into. Correct. And I understand that in the past, the Jackson County prosecutor, perhaps because of juries, which she'll know much better than I do, or numbers in her office, which I have absolutely no understanding to, suggest that there was a difference in how these might be treated. That being said, it seems like fentanyl is unique in the challenge that it's presenting to our community. So I guess just as one board member, I would ask us perhaps to consider a discussion as to not subjecting fentanyl-related charges to the nexus to violence requirement, or perhaps just saying as a blanket, they all do have a nexus to violence, and then hopefully pursuing those charges in more situations.
Yes, and I think a lot of, I don't mean to jump in,
Go ahead.
Louis. I think a lot of those possession cases that weren't being charged because there was no nexus to violence, it was usually user amounts of narcotics. I will say that there has been discussion with regard to some of the narcotics that are interdicted. That's a whole another long conversation, but I will definitely make sure that we have those discussions with Gene Peters Baker at Jackson County to make sure that, obviously I think everyone's recognizing the epidemic of fentanyl and make sure that there's an emphasis on ensuring that there's a certainty of consequences for that.
Colonel Maben?
Good morning. My information is under tab B, but you can also follow along on the screen. Excuse me. First, we'll begin with some notable events from the past month. On November 27th, members of the Vice Human Trafficking Squad, along with members of the Traffic Division's DUI section, conducted a youth alcohol undercover operation. This operation consisted of having a minor attempt to buy alcohol from businesses which are licensed to sell alcohol in Kansas City. Out of a total of 12 attempts, 3 of the businesses failed to card the underage person and subsequently sold them alcohol. We were directed to 2 of these businesses by tips from the community. The clerks were issued summons, and the information was forwarded to regulated industries to follow up. This is a good example of how we are working with the community and the city to solve problems together. The Community Engagement Division's community interaction officers participated in several Thanksgiving events throughout the city during the past month. One such event was the annual Friendsgiving Community Partnership Meal at East Patrol Division. It involved East Patrol's Special Resource Group. That's a coalition of community groups who serve neighborhoods within the division. The event was held at East Patrol's gym, and about 100 people enjoyed a meal and fellowship together. All of the food was donated by Sunfresh at 3110 Prospect. And not to be outdone, the West Side Can officers delivered about 120 turkeys and meals to families in Central Patrol Division's boundaries. We would like to thank all of our community partners who helped make these events and several others that occurred during the month a success. Police Athletic League had 1,000 total youth visits during the month with an average daily attendance of 47 kids. 26 children took advantage of the tutoring program for a total of 69 cumulative study hours. PAL also held its annual gala, their largest fundraiser of the year. This year was a joint fundraising effort with KCK PAL. The event was held at Sporting KC with approximately 250 people in attendance and was a tremendous success. Moving on to our Special Operations Division. Our tactical response teams participated in 2 Operation 100s. Both ended with suspects surrendering peacefully. They also made 37 warrant arrests, 12 investigative arrests, including 2 for homicide and 1 for felon in possession of a firearm, and along with traffic, bomb and arson, CED, and others, provided security during the plaza lighting ceremony. Here's November's median response time report. The median response time for priority 1 calls during the month of November was 8 minutes and 30 seconds. This is a 7-second increase compared to October. The median response time for priority 2 calls was approximately 11 minutes and 2 seconds. That's a 12-second increase compared to October. The Traffic Investigation Unit responded to 10 fatal crashes with a total of 12 deaths during the month of November. They also responded to another 17 serious injury crashes. 2 of the fatal crashes were hit and runs and are unsolved. 2 of the other fatality crashes will be submitted when all the evidence has been examined. The remaining 6 were exceptionally clear due to the death of the driver. 2 fatal crashes from previous months were cleared during November. From January to the end of November, there were 83 fatal crashes with a total of 94 deaths this year, compared to 76 crashes with 80 fatalities last year. Next month, we'll have a year-end summary of fatal crashes and contributing factors. As we've discussed in the past, some of the tools we use to reduce these accidents are traffic enforcement operations, DUI wolf packs, and speeding enforcement at high crash intersections. But one of the main ways we as a community can reduce fatal accidents is for everyone to wear seatbelts. So if anyone's listening today who does not wear a seatbelt, I implore you to start. If not for yourself, do it for your family and your friends. Here are the DUI wolf pack numbers for November. The DUI section conducted 7 wolf pack operations with a combined total of 81 traffic stops, 113 tickets issued, and 35 DUI arrests. I've previously mentioned some of the great work the parking control section does for the city. Well, here's another example. This past month, Parking Control assisted the city's Planning and Development Department in conducting a sweep to remove abandoned and illegally parked vehicles from city streets, as well as from city easement. 2 weeks prior to the operation, the city notified residents and property owners within 3 target areas that they needed to remove vehicles or the city would take action. The operation consisted of 4 parking control officers, a parking control supervisor, and 4 city compliance officers. And the results were as follows: 12 citations issued, 2 vehicles towed for being illegally parked, 2 vehicles marked for abandonment, and 10 other vehicles moved in parking control's presence. Lastly, I'd like to introduce you to K9 Mac, the newest member of the K9 section. He's a Belgian Malinois and was born September 12, 2022. Mac is originally from the Netherlands, where he is trained using Dutch commands and was purchased through Houston K9 Academy in Texas. His partner is Sergeant Jeff Epstein, and both are currently in training, which is expected to be completed in late February or early March. And that concludes my presentation. Do you have any questions?
Yes, we have a K-9 officer that lost his partner. What do we do in that situation?
He'll end up getting a new partner. A lot of times we have philanthropic people will donate a new K-9 or the money, as you are aware, that's happened in the past, but we'll definitely make sure he's taken care of.
We don't have another one in line right now.
No, not standing by. It'll be a process.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions of Chief Maven? All right. Then we're going to hear from the Administration Bureau from Major Dan Haley.
Good morning. Major Dan Haley sitting in for DC Niemeyer. The Administration Bureau's information is under tab C. Department strength, law enforcement numbers are 1,108 as of November 30th, 2023. Police officer candidates, we have 35. Professional staff, the staffing is 509. Law enforcement hiring numbers. In the process for possible eligibility, we have 14 pending job offers for March 18th class, 6, and laterals in the process, we have 4. Communications hiring numbers. New hires, 25 for the year. Job offers pending, we have 2. In the process for possible eligibility, we have 9.
We got communication yesterday about communications numbers. Have you seen that letter?
I did look at it last evening, and we'll look into it.
Well, we want to acknowledge that we were not accurate in October. Is that correct?
In terms of?
When we said we were competitive, were we competitive? Are we competitive?
No, our pay is not competitive.
Okay. Is there an explanation?
Yes. So back in December of 2021 and then mid 2022, we realized at that point we were not competitive pay for our regional area. So we did a pay adjustment, which did in fact put us near the top in the region. But over time, all these other agencies started raising their top, which then forced us down below where we believe we should be in order to be competitive.
Okay. And Major Haley said we're going to do something about that. We approved an RFP for a study last month, right?
Yes.
And what's that study supposed to do?
The RFP is out there right now. We should be receiving responses early January, and then our plan is to have a company selected by mid-February. What that's designed to do is look at our professional staff pay across the board.
Not just communications.
Not just communications, but just across the board. We realize we have a tired pay scale structure in our professional staff. It needs freshened up. It's not up with the times, and we do realize that and the importance of it. This is similar to what the city did with their pay study. So we're hoping to mirror that and get our professional staff up to where they need to be to include the communications unit.
Chief?
I just have one thing to add to that. Our non-sworn pay scales have been a problem for quite some time. And Deputy Chief McCollum and I have discussed that. We've discussed that here as executive staff, and how much of a problem that old pay scale or matrix or whatever it is. So much so that we have moved forward for this RFP. And I know some of that might not come soon enough, but there are always times where we'll review a specific pay scale, or meaning like a specific position. So we recognize that there is a problem. We recognize that right now we are not at a competitive rate for our dispatchers and call takers in our communications unit, but we are taking steps to fix that. And should there be any kind of other development out of that, then and we're able to, we'll definitely take steps to try to remedy that. We have heard our communications unit. We are listening. And
We are too.
I just wish we could move a little bit faster, but also we have budget constraints too, with regard to that. So they're definitely a priority of ours.
In our April or May or perhaps June meeting at the latest, if the past is any prediction for this, we'll adopt a budget at the Board of Police Commissioners. Is it your intention to look to have an increased pay scale, particularly for call takers, in connection with what these comments are?
Yeah, depending on what our budget looks like, that's definitely something that we're going to look at. I mean, that's something that we're considering, and really hoping to get this pay study done as soon as we can. We have discussions about this actually often, because it's department wide on for our non-sworn members. So we want to make sure that the pay fits the position. And, you know, that's the same thing that we were. I don't want to compare that to some of the law enforcement, but like we are looking at all of these pay scales and how we compare to other regions and other local departments, and what salary and how they compensate their members.
And something that led to a fun back and forth, and it was an entertaining one that I had with the deputy chief a few meetings ago. I think this department, and with respect to you standing up for your officers, asked the board to adopt a fairly aggressive request to the city of Kansas City as it relates to starting salaries for officers so that we could attract officers and hopefully retain them with other adjustments thereafter. I'm not sure this board has seen that same type of aggressive effort for our call takers. I might ask why, as one, and then is that something that we can expect in meetings coming up?
I think we can expect that meetings coming up. I think Derek and I can have conversations about how we might be able to fit that in or look at it. The response from the question of why hasn't that been already brought forward, I guess we looked at the whole pay scale being remedied with an RFP and someone coming and taking a look at it to see the best way moving forward, like an outside person coming in to tell us best practice. But that's something that we can continue to explore.
And I'll just say perhaps editorially, because I do believe then Commissioner Tolbert and I made a comment to that effect, because much of that meeting was about 911 related issues. The suggestion being that if we're looking at rather substantial salary increases, perhaps in some ways untethered to the pure budget request and others, that we should look at that for them too. Because I remember my discussion at the time was saying, perhaps we need more study for it. It seems as if for the call takers, we're saying we're going to go through all the study, we'll put them in this broader group. For another category, we are not. And what I might just look to, and this is purely editorial, so you needn't respond, is just some consistency with that. What we're getting in communications from our communications unit appears to be some discussion of that as a crisis, and I think the public would likely agree as well. So thank you.
Points taken.
The public will agree. And we need to remember, and they said it in the letter that they sent us yesterday, if they don't answer the phone, the officers don't know where to go. So
And they are the first responder.
they are the first responders, so
Yeah.
it's a priority. And I want you all to treat it as such.
We will do that.
Did you have anything else?
Yes.
Okay.
Law enforcement testing dates. We'll have a test tomorrow, December 13th, at the Academy for Law Enforcement Officers, starting at 8 a.m. Additional tests will be January 20th, 2024, February 22nd, 2024 also. In case anyone was wondering, we are hiring, looking for law enforcement, security guards, communications unit personnel, dispatchers, call takers, computer specialists, desk clerks. Oh my. Detention unit, yes, of course, detention unit. Last week, we had a lateral transfer. Welcome to the department, P.O. Stoner. I believe she's from the Pleasant Hill Police Department. That was December 6th last week. Welcome to Officer Stoner, sorry. 179th EOC graduation will be February 8th. The 180th EOC starting date was October 30th, and the 181st EOC starting date will be March 18th, 2024. Unless there are any questions, that concludes my presentation.
What's EOC?
Entrant Officer Candidate.
Sadly,
Class,
you
sorry.
don't know this, but I like for us to say things out loud, not in alphabet soup. So I probably should have known that, but not everybody that watches this knows that. So don't use acronyms if you can give us the words. The FBI, you're allowed to use. DEA, you can use. ATF. Other than that, no. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners, Mr. Mayor. All items for the Executive Services Bureau are located under tab D of your board book. Item A, budget transfers for fiscal year 2023-24. I request general fund and police grant fund transfers. The general fund transfer moves $886,691 from personal services to contractual services. Due to appropriation cuts to contractual services, this transfer is necessary to ensure sufficient funding in categories for the normal operation of the department. I would like to point out this does not come from salaries. The department experienced a favorable variance with our health insurance, therefore we are able to draw from that line item. The Police Grants Fund transfer moves $9,203 from commodities in the amounts of $7,353 to personal services and $1,850 to contractual services. The Police Grants Fund transfers adjust appropriations to where they are needed now compared to when they were estimated in the fall of 2022 as the budget was being put together. Unless you have any questions, I recommend approval.
Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
I still discuss, though,
Oh,
if I may.
yeah, you're absolutely right. Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion?
I understand I'm necessary today for favorable votes, so in the reality that if Commissioner Whitaker or others are here, you'd probably be able to get them passed. I won't be a total impediment, but I will still ask just a few questions for you. So you noted a favorable variance, I believe, in health insurance. And when I look at the page you provide, it looks like there is a, if I'm reading this somewhat correctly, there is a there's a $1,111,000 change kind of in this health insurance category. Can you explain for us perhaps what this favorable variance is? Does it happen often? Because if we find an extra $1 million every board meeting, then we're in a much better place.
I would agree. Well, what happens is when people, when we lose through attrition, early retirements, resignations, we're not paying that person's coverage of the health insurance. So therefore, we have that favorable variance, and we use it to purchase things that we need.
So this is basically separations. That means that there's a different count, and so we're able to get those savings. Do we earlier in the year, I don't know how much we forecast. Do we typically forecast how many separations that we'll have throughout the course of the year and then adjust things like this too in kind of what our budget calculations will be?
Yes, we typically do that.
This one, however, was this forecast for us, or was this more of a surprise given the extent of separations that we had?
Not all of it was forecast. I mean, we do make adjustments early on when we do see these, but not all of these were known.
That's fine for now. I'm good.
Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, no. I say aye. Motion carries.
Item B, adjustment to special revenue accounts for fiscal year 2023-24. The department anticipates receiving $12,450 donation for body-worn camera mounts and hardware from the Police Foundation of Kansas City. Therefore, it is requested that $12,450 be appropriated from the unappropriated fund balance of the Special Services Fund to pay the cost of the body-worn camera ancillary equipment. Unless you have any questions, I recommend approval.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.
Item C, renewal of bid 2023-15 police uniform contract. On December 13, 2022, the board approved a one-year contract to Gulls, GT Distributors, and Basinger's Police Supply for uniforms and equipment. Within the contract was the option to renew for 4 additional one-year periods based upon mutually agreeable pricing, available funding, and quality of service. This will be the first renewal period and will extend from January 1st, 2024 through December 31st, 2024. Unless you have any questions, I recommend approval for an anticipated expenditure of $317,367.47.
Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second. Just a brief question. Will these still be the blue uniforms for the additional year?
Yes. Oh, you mean the current?
What you're wearing?
Yeah, yes, sir, yes.
I still like blue. We'll have that chat someday, but we need them today. All right, thank you.
All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries.
And I second the blue.
That's unanimous. All right. Item D.
Item D, Midwest Haida Intensity Drug Trafficking Area, better known as Midwest Haida Task Force Grant Modification.
Thank you very much for saying what the letters mean.
You're welcome. The department recently received a modification for the 2023 Midwest Haida Metro Drug Force Initiative. This modification increases the award by $107,500 to pay for an ATF contract analyst, a computer, and travel.
The total award is now $213,445. Unless you have any questions, I do request your approval for this modification.
So moved, or second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Is there any discussion?
May I just say briefly, HIDA is one of the most impressive things that we work with. I had the chance to visit some months ago. I wish folks knew more about some of the outstanding work that we're doing along with our law enforcement partners in this region and federally, because it's exceptional work. And even in this, to ATF contract analyst, a computer, and a little bit of travel, and it's amazing what we can do to address, indeed, some of the issues that we've discussed earlier today. So thank you for that.
Absolutely. We've been partners in partnership with them for the past 26 years, and they're very important to the work we do.
Thank you.
That completes my report.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Still need to vote, I think. I ruined it.
Motion's been made and seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. All right. Item 11, I think, has been removed. Is that correct? Correct. All right. Item 12 is general counsel.
Good morning, Commissioners. I have one action item for you, and it's under tab F in your board book. The Private Officer Licensing Unit has proposed amending Title 17 of the Code of State Regulations. The proposed changes are clarifications of existing language. If there are any questions, Manager Tammy Gallagher or I are happy to try to answer them. Otherwise, I request approval of the proposed changes to the Code of State Regulations.
Is there a motion for approval?
So moved.
Is there a second? Second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. There's nobody say no. So the motion carries. Thank you very much. Do you have anything else?
Not at this time. The remainder of my report will be in closed session.
And Director Bennigan advised me that he does not have a report. Thank you. Public comments. Dr. Kenner?
Yes, we've got four. The first one is Akil Bey.
My name is Akil Bey, and what I'm standing in front of you for is I want to try to clear up some things, or shed some light on some things that were said about my son when Eric DeValkin had killed him. I want to read to you what the appeals courts found. They found that the victim was not in possession of a gun at the time of the shooting. They found the defendant made a false statement at the scene and immediately after the shooting, claiming when he arrived, the lady in pink was telling him that the Mustang had came over there prior with guns. Say the victim was not a threat to either the defendant or his partner. His partner stated, prior to the defendant's claim that he saw a gun, he did not feel threatened. The defendant's partner never saw a gun and never supported that version of her encounter. The victim was not being chased by police. The victim was not being arrested for a crime, no probable cause to believe that anything other than a misdemeanor traffic offense that had ended. The victim was not a threat to either the defendant or his partner. His partner stated that prior to the defendant's claim that he saw a gun, he did not feel threatened. The defendant's partner never saw a gun and never supported that version of the encounter. He did see the victim's left hand, and there was no gun in it. The victim had a bullet in his pocket at the morgue, but none at the scene of the crime. The reason I'm saying this is because I want to try to understand how here's an officer that's so well trained. Many officers are wonderful officers, yet and still, he did something like this and getting the support for a pardon. All the violations that he conducted, that he did, to break the laws he broke, why is it that the police department or the FOP that's pushing folks to submit something to the governor for a pardon? How can you say this man deserves a pardon? How can you let a man like that bring a black eye to those that's doing so much good? If he's wrong, he's just wrong. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next is Doug Rubhausen. Following that would be Ron Hunt.
Good morning. Good morning, everybody. I haven't talked to y'all in a while, but I definitely want to give big kudos to the Community Engagement Division, Deputy Chief Maben, Major Corey, she's not here, but they've been really kind of helping me in the neighborhood. Also, I'm going to send y'all, Chief, I'm going to send you an invoice. I got you a call taker, didn't I, Maben? I think I got a call taker for you, and I found her. She's my next door neighbor. So, Mayor, make sure you give them a raise. Get the officers a raise so they can feel good about doing what they're doing, because they're doing some good work. But I want to say this. This year was a pretty bad year in terms of violent crime. Next year, I'd like to see us do something different in terms of a lot of people cannot make it to these board meetings. And so I would like to suggest that maybe we can take the board meeting to the community, and that way, and I ain't saying that, discuss all the, everything on the agenda, but what I'm trying to do is get our community that are victims of homicides, that's perpetrators of homicide, to look at themselves. It's not the police fault that the crime rate is high. It's a cultural problem. It's a people problem. And I think that what the health department is suggesting with all the fentanyl stuff, they need to do more outreach. Needs to do more outreach. People want to be here, but they're unfortunately at work. And so I just want to let the board know that I'm supporting the police department. We had a great event with the POW. I think it was last month. I was there. And so we're doing some good things. And we're not going to be able to save everybody, but at least we can attempt to save their children. And that's my position, is saving our children. So I just want to wish all of y'all happy holidays. I look forward to seeing y'all next month. But let's come up with new strategies for 2024. Thank you for listening to me.
And last is Doug Schaefer.
I'm Doug Schaefer, Community Christian Church representative on the board of Moore Squared. Today we appeal to the 3 appointed commissioners. You know where we stand regarding your role as governor-appointed commissioners. Kansas City's police governance is uniquely undemocratic in America. Nevertheless, perhaps it is for such a time as this that you are in these seats with the opportunity to affirm with your action the recently recited Pledge of Allegiance and the motto on Missouri's seal and flag. 500,000 Kansas Cityans could write the governor and expect a form letter saying nothing in 6 weeks. You, however, have the power to get the governor on the phone. The governor needs to hear from you about the lawful conviction of the killer of Cameron Lamb. Despite the resistance of this department, starting with its instant finding of bad guys dead, everyone's okay, our district attorney investigated the circumstances, presented the case to a grand jury, got an indictment, prosecuted the case at a bench trial, and won a conviction which was upheld in a 42-page decision by the Missouri Court of Appeals. All this due process is how the people of Missouri have said Cameron Lamb's life mattered. The next 9 seconds of my testimony is silence. That's the time it took for Cameron Lamb's killer to arrogate to himself the roles of investigator, grand jury, prosecutor, judge, appeals court, and executioner. But the governor says he's most concerned about how the district attorney handled the case. The audacity, an elected district attorney thinks someone is guilty of murder, does her job as prosecutor, wins the case at trial, and even defends the conviction to the appeals court because the Missouri Attorney General refused to do his job. The former sheriff, now governor, needs a refresher course in the American legal system. He needs to hear from you, He needs to hear from you before he may choose to commute the sentence of Cameron Lamb's killer. He needs to know the consequence of trying to stop justice from flowing down like water. He should be confronted with the possibility of the mass resignation of his appointees to the Kansas City Board of Commissioners. Commissioner Dean, will you call Governor Parson and threaten to resign if he should pardon the killer of Cameron Lamb? Commissioner Kramer, will you call the governor and threaten to resign if he were to pardon the killer of Cameron Lamb? I ask the same question in absentia of Commissioner Whitaker. I leave for your consciences this still relevant line from Reverend Martin Luther King Jr.'s letter from a Birmingham jail. We will have to repent in this generation, not merely for the vitriolic words and deeds of the bad people, but for the appalling silence of the good people.
Any others, David?
That's it.
Then, approval of the minutes of November 14, 2023.
So moved?
Dawn?
Second, sorry.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. Any comments from Mr. Kenner?
I'd just like to wish everybody a very Merry Christmas and a happy and safe New Year.
Mayor Lucas?
I would like to wish the same. I'm glad we had our conversation about the communications unit. We have appreciated their communications. I will note signed communications to us, which is something when employees do that. So I hope to the extent we can have urgency in improving not just salaries, but other quality of employment issues in that division, we can do those as timely as possible. But otherwise, I wish the same and thank all of those who over Christmas, New Year's, and all other holidays will be out at work keeping the people of Kansas City safe and, of course, answering the phones as well. So thank you.
Commissioner Kramer?
Again, I'd like to wish everybody a happy and safe holiday season, and may God bless everybody, and have a great New Year. We'll see you then. Thanks.
I too wish people a happy holiday, and I say thank you to those on this department who have to work on most of the holidays, and they work 24 hours a day. I am honored to be associated with this department and the people, men and women, who serve the city of Kansas City. I thank you for that, and I wish you a happy holiday when your time allows it. Thank you. I think we now need a motion to go into closed session.
I move that we go into closed session pursuant to Missouri Revised Statute, Section 621, to discuss litigation, contracts, employment, and other related matters.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Roll call.
Dean, aye.
Lucas, aye.
Kramer, aye.
Carries. We will adjourn to the closed session.